What's going on the internet? Selfish here with Retrospect. This is the Anbernic Cube, a handheld that I followed for a while and really couldn't figure out exactly what it was because it's just like this mashup of all these different handhelds that have come out in 2024 to create whatever this is. And it's kind of like a happy little accident. This thing should be a mess, but it's actually kind of magical, and we're going to find out why. Let's take a look. Here we have the Anbernic Cube. What a great box. You know, it's not their top of the line because it's using silver instead of gold. Actually, I think they only ever used gold in one handheld, if I remember correctly. But, you know, it's wishful thinking if we could figure out what their boxes mean, but we never will. This here is the beige/white color. Hard to tell on camera, but it actually is a weird off-white color, which maybe will help it from getting dirty. I'm not sure. I think it'll still get dirty. I just don't know if you'll be able to see it as much as you would be able to if it was just straight white. And honestly, if the shoulder buttons and things were not actually white, I wouldn't be able to tell the difference. I would just think this is white. But they are offset just enough, and this is the angle you can kind of see it in. Right here you can see it is a little bit white, but we'll take this out of here in just a second. We'll go through what's in the box here. In here you do have your Type-C, it's an A to C cable. The nice thing about an Android device is this thing will actually probably charge on just about anything, unlike some of the picky Linux devices, so that'll be kind of nice. We do have a screen cover, which I'm actually making this short video now for you guys because I want to be able to put my screen cover on here. I've been carrying it around for a couple days trying to just play with it a little bit, and I was going to make a full video to begin with, and now I know I need to play with it a little bit more because there are some tweaky little things that I want to change and kind of make sure that they work correctly. So I wanted to make a quick video though before I put a screen cover on. So we'll put the screen cover on here now. See, look at that. Video started, now I can put my screen cover on. That's all I was asking for. We know we could stop it now, and then we'll just go on. And then we do have our paper accordion here, and it has the same kind of directions Anbernic typically has. There's not the worst directions that are out there, and very few things are misspelled in these ones in comparison to some of the others. Though in their Linux operating system, they still don't know how to spell arcade, but nobody does, apparently. They all spell it wrong. But on here, it looks like it's just fine. I was going to find something fun to read for you like I normally do, but not seeing it. So let's move on. And then we will take it out of the packaging here. So that's what we got. We have our Anbernic Cube, which is just a great little handheld. We're going to just discuss a few things about it. I'll show you a couple of things, and then we'll kind of call it a day and let you kick off your weekend while I continue to play with this and get it set up pretty much the way that we need it to be set up, I think. Don't mind me, nothing to see here. That thing just flew. Not even sure where it went. Oh, I like these when they sit flush when they're done. Hopefully, if I didn't just put that in there crooked. Yeah, there we go. Now it's even all the way across. I love it when they do that. That was my how-to video on how to properly install a screen cover on a RG Cube by Anbernic. Because they couldn't just call it a cube, they had to put RG in there as well. I have no idea. Okay, so first thing we're going to do, like we always do, is we will go over the I/O here real quick. So on the top here, we do have our shoulder buttons. They are stacked. It is nice to see Anbernic actually does know how to make stacked shoulder buttons, kind of a new thing for them. We do have our C hole, we also have our SD hole, and our 3.5 hole. So it's nice that you do have the ability to use headphones on this device as well. And then we do have our grill. This is our, my dog's grunting at me in the background. This is our grill for our exhaust for our fan that's inside of here, which you can see here on the back. We do have these nice little ergonomic grippy things that have this nice texture on here. This actually feels pretty good. It's weird that you can actually feel this, but you can, which is neat. And then we do have our grate here for our fan that's running in there. I just leave that thing on auto. I've never found a spot, even after playing for multiple hours on this, where I needed to turn on the fan. You will feel some heat in the middle. One, you have a hole there, so heat's going to come out anyways, and the fan's going to kick on if it needs to, so that's just where I leave it. On the right hand side over here, we do have our power button and our volume up and down buttons, and on our left hand side over here, we have absolutely nothing. On our bottom here, we do have two openings. These openings here are for our speakers, so our speakers are downward firing. At least we have two speakers that aren't rear firing, I guess. Downward's better than rear, but still not as good as front. On the front here, we do have two Switch style joysticks. They don't seem to even have as much travel to me as a Switch, and I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure these are actually more of a short throw than a Switch would be, but they feel fine, and they do obviously have L3 and R3 on them. We have this pucked style D-pad, and it actually works as an 8-way D-pad. It works pretty well. Better than some of the ones we've tested lately. This thing, it does okay. You can hit your diagonals, stuff like that. It is a little bit stiffer because of the way it's set up, so it's not gonna be as sloppy. So when fighting, you would think this would be easier. I almost think it might be a little bit more difficult just because it is a little stiffer, but I think this is probably the same D-pad, maybe slightly modified from the Anbernic RG Arc. Very, very similar. It feels, I have got an Arc, they feel pretty much the same. So I do dig that D-pad. I think that they might have taken some things they learned there and transferred it over to here. We do have our Anbernic button, which brings you to the Anbernic game menu, and then we do have our home and back button. On this side over here, we do have start and select. These are the two loudest buttons on here. I don't know why these switches are louder than the rest, but they are. And it just might be the way they're recessed in here too. It might just give it a little bit more extra volume. I'm not really sure. And then this is the reason why I went with white instead of that purplish pink color, is because of our Skittle buttons. And these work just fine. I don't know why they're so small. I don't know what is up with Anbernic and small buttons these days. These aren't as tiny as the 28XX, but they're not nearly as big as some of the other devices they have. They could have even gone with the same. Maybe these are the same and they just feel different, but the ones here on the 556, I think the 556 are a little bit bigger. I'm not sure, but they feel fine. The spacing on them is a little bit better. I can tell you that for sure. They're spaced better than the 556, so you can differentiate them a little bit better. It just would be nice to have a little bit more room right there. And then we do have an LED there. And then our screen, which is a 720 by 720 1x1 screen. It's actually technically not a 4x4. It's actually a 3.9 and some change, but we're going to call it a 4x4 and a 720 by 720 screen, because legit that's pretty much what it is. And we'll go through the specs here real quick. This does rock the Unisec T820 processor, and it has a quad-core Mali GPU with 8 gigabytes of LPDDR4 RAM, 4X RAM, not just 4X RAM, 28 gigs of internal storage, and it's running Android 13. This does have built-in 2.4 and 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi. It also supports Bluetooth 5.0. It does have video out through DisplayPort on Type-C, and this is supposed to be able to be a separate aspect ratio. We'll talk about it a little bit as we go through it. There's a few workarounds, but it's a pain in the ass to get this to actually scale up to your television. It's just something to be aware of. With that charging port, they do say it's 5-volt 2-amp like any other charger, and they say it takes about 3 hours to get a full charge, to get about 8 hours out of it. I've gotten more than 8 hours if I'm playing 2D games, if I'm playing like some old GBA games, or if I go to like NES, SNES, even a couple of Capcom games, like it'll get through and it'll be more than that 8-hour mark, somewhere between 8 and 10 hours. And it doesn't really take very long to recharge this thing either, but I have drained her all the way down just to get a better ballpark of where that battery charging would be at. The other thing this does have is it does have RGB around the sticks, so it will give you a glowing review, and we can see that here maybe. Oh yeah, it's on gaming. So you can go in here and you can change what your RGB does. So like if you want to have the rainbow marquee or whatever, you can do that for sure. So if you follow retrospect.gg at all, you would have seen the article I posted prior to this coming out going, I don't understand why they're doing this on an Android device. I know they're trying to compete directly with the A1 Unicorn, which is running a Helio G99 versus the T820 that's in here. These devices are selling very well overseas, and so this is kind of new to market here in the US. You should get double the resolution on GBA at a really skewed screen. Your aspect ratio is kind of jacked up, so it's kind of a weird thing, but if you're like me on GBA, I'll run it 8x7 versus a 4x3, stuff like that. You really, in my eye, it looks damn near the same, and especially once you start tweaking around with some of the filters and stuff, you can really make it look good. But it's just a weird size for us here, and so my thought would be, well, how Katie did it pretty much as a Pico 8 machine, right? So the RGB 30 is great for Pico 8, which is running the same screen as this. Problem is there's no native Pico for Android. They've got native for Linux, they've got native for Raspberry Pis, more or less Linux, native for Windows, nothing for Android. It's kind of a weird aspect ratio to do something where the main 1x1 system is going to be Linux. Now, you are going to get some other 1x1 systems out there as well, but that is the main system for a 1x1. This thing runs better than you'd think it would, and I'll show you a couple of things. So I have found, oddly enough, that this is my favorite device to play 3DS on. I don't know why, but it does have a very clean 3DS setup. I'm not going to do a ton of gameplay. We're not going to talk a ton today. I just kind of want to show you a few things before I do my final review. The buttons on here feel really good. The D-pad feels way better than I thought it was going to. Just like the Anbernic RG Arc, the D-pad surprised me. I thought the D-pad was going to suck. These are really risky D-pads to make when you do these 8-way D-pads, and both of them turned out well. I think they might have tweaked it a little bit since then. I haven't played with my Arc enough recently to be able to tell the difference. I'd have to play with it some more, but it feels good. It works just fine. And it works for fighting games. It doesn't hit as hard when you're going around to do your Shinookens and things like that. There are a couple things that really do bother me. I don't know why the start and select buttons are louder, for one. I don't know why they didn't split these from opposite sides, so start, selector, plus, minus, and then your home and your Anbernic game system button. I don't know why they didn't separate that. I know that Anbernic always does this, but it drives me nuts every time they do it. They did the same thing on the 556, you know, they do it on all their devices. The other thing that really bugs me is this power and volume buttons on the side that I think should be on top. Every time I go to turn this device on, I literally have to think about it because I want to go on top to turn it on. Maybe the volume could stay here, but the power should definitely be on the top of the handheld. I get what they were going for here, but I think it should be on top. The other thing is, because they're trying to sell this as a console handheld, if that was the case, and I've been saying this about all of them, even the Steam Deck I say it about, I know people don't want this power cable underneath here. They think it's in the way. Well, nothing gets in the way more and sucks more than if you actually want to use these the way they're made to be used. This being on top, you can't dock it. If I wanted to dock this, so the way I charged this last night, if I wanted to dock this, I hooked a charging cable into this, and this is how you have to dock it. It's the stupidest thing. Find me a dock that actually like doesn't have just a cable coming up. At that point, what's the point of docking it? The same, the Steam Deck, you got to pull the cable up to dock it. What's the point? I don't understand. I don't get why that handhelds have been built like that. Premium handhelds are built correctly. Let's take a look at the Odin, for instance. This is the Odin 2. This one's docked right now. Look how nice it is. When I want to play with it, I can just walk away. When I'm done at the end of the day, boom, done. Hear that? It's docked. Why can't we simplify that? And it drives me nuts. And this device is no different than 99% of the rest of these things that come out. Probably 95% to be fair. It doesn't make any sense, these docks on the top. I know people are going to say down there that they don't want cables hanging off while they're playing video games. I get it. So give it 2 ports. Why not? How many things have 2 ports and they're both still on the top? It don't make no sense. I just did a review on this device. We have our HDMI and 2 Type-C ports on the top. And why don't we put our DC port on the bottom? Just our charging port could go on the bottom. And you know what you could do? You could dock this. And that would add to the value of this handheld. Same with this one right here. But the power button's more of a gripe because I just can't ever remember where it is. But eventually, I'm sure muscle memory will come to me. But it just seems weird to have it on the side when anything else that's in this form factor is always on top, or similar form factor. And then these speakers firing out the bottom. I would be hard-pressed to guess that these speakers are probably sitting right behind these switches right here, so it probably would have been just as easy to cut a vent underneath them. We would have maybe making it a little brittle, though. There might not have been enough plastic there, so I'll give them a pass on that. They do sound okay because they really are kind of cupping off your hands anyways, and if you've ever done that to a phone, it almost amplifies it, so in some instances, it's better. It's not the worst place for them to be, and it's way better in the back, where they would have had plenty of room to do it back there, too, so I'm glad that they did them through at least the bottom, but I would prefer to have them out front. But those are my nitpicks, man. I don't really have a lot of bad things to say. You can play and scale this thing for pretty much anything, which is why I'm not going to make this my final video. I'm just doing a quick one because I'm slowly getting through the systems to get them scaled to play how I want. I've got 3DS now set up the way that I want to play it, and so I'm going to show you some 3DS here, and just so you can kind of get a feel for it and what it looks like on this screen. And I think it just looks phenomenal. And then, as I go through some more systems here and get everything set up, then we will do a final video for you. And I am going to turn the volume off here. I'm not going to do any gameplay volume. I don't want to screw around with that later on in editing. We're running 2x resolution right now. Still strong 60 FPS, no problems. This is Mario Kart 7 on 3DS. But yeah, I mean, it looks super clean. This interface looks really good with just this extra on the bottom here, because the screen is really tiny, in this. I am just playing terribly because I'm trying to think at the same time. The screen's, really just scaled out right. A decent aspect ratio. We're taking the most advantage of the screen that we possibly can to get the most clear picture we possibly can. Honestly, it's a big enough screen for me. I'm sure it would be big enough for you as well. I kind of wondered how this is going to work on a 4-inch screen, because you're going to obviously lose some screen here and lose some real estate when you start to compact everything down, but it works out really well. So I just kind of wanted to show you how good it looks. I'm obsessed with 3DS. I never play 3DS on any of my handhelds. Very, very rare for me to play 3DS, and now I am literally obsessed with playing 3DS. That's mostly what I've been playing on this for this reason. It's just, it looks so good, it works so well. And when you do have to draw on the bottom, you can draw on the bottom if you want to or whatever. I'll show you some other stuff. And here we are upscaled on N64, playing Cruisin', a game that struggles on almost every handheld that we test this thing on. Now granted, this is a more powerful chip with that T820, but still, I mean, even on some of the 3566s, this thing struggles pretty hard, and now we're able to upscale it and be able to run it just fine. It's very smooth. And I don't remember if I mentioned this or not, but this does have Hall triggers and Hall effects sticks in it as well, so that's kind of neat. Okay, here again, we're running F-Zero on N64, and it is upscaled. And it is running clean as it could be. It's kind of interesting because I'm used to using really powerful Android devices, but this is not kind of where I would, oh man, I'm going the wrong way, where I would normally be. I do use my 556 all the time. It plays all these games the same as this is playing them, but this feels better in some aspects. Some of the games, like if I were to say when I tried streaming on here, I prefer to do that right now on my 556. There's a lot of things I actually like to do more on my 556, but this is getting me to play some systems that I just wouldn't normally play, like this, like 3DS. It's not something I play. I don't play a lot of N64 either, and I honestly don't mind it on here. As long as the letterboxing is on the top and the bottom versus the sides, I am pretty decently okay with it. I'm not a big fan of letterboxing on the sides, but if it's on the top and the bottom, it doesn't seem to bother me, and I think that's because I grew up in the age where 1080 came out, and we started getting widescreen TVs, and so we started getting letterboxing because movies, like on Blu-ray and things like that, they were letterboxed if you didn't have a widescreen TV, and we didn't have one of those when I was growing up, so I got used to letterboxing. So I don't even notice it. And I'm not going to pretend like this is perfect upscaled. Mostly runs just under 30 FPS. actually dropping right now for some reason. And it gets maybe a little glitchy every once in a while, but most of the time it's fine. But this is on GameCube. Did I say Dreamcast? This is on GameCube. So you're definitely able to go through and do this. Now, at 1x, I don't know if it'd be running at 60. I feel like it should be. I mean, it feels fine to play. Granted, I don't have any audio on, so I don't know what it sounds like, but it, as far as play-wise, it feels pretty good, even at such a low FPS compared to what it normally is. It should make it easier, shouldn't it? I should be able to drive better. This just gives us a little walking through here on Metroid Prime, but man, it looks gorgeous. Again, I probably should lower the resolution, but it looks pretty good for where it's at right now. I don't know how I'm supposed to shoot that. Oh, maybe I shoot that. I don't know what I was supposed to do. I don't remember the beginning of this game. I haven't played this game in years. I just thought it'd be kind of fun to jump on and see what it looked like. I'd say she looks pretty good. I really have no idea how to play Ace Combat, but I thought it'd be kind of fun to jump on here and see what it looked like here on PS2. It's a little choppy. Let's see if we can change something here to see what is going on. We're running 2x resolution. If we back her down to maybe like 1.5. Failed? What? I think this is supposed to be at 60, so let's see if we can't get it at 60. Yes, we're going to retry. Of course we're going to retry. We don't want to fail. I never had this game as a kid, and I don't know why. This game's like right up my alley. There's another one. Whoop. Nothing over here somewhere. This is where I get really bad at this game because I start to get confused. I'm really good at riding in airplanes. Not so much flying them. I can ride in them just fine. I don't remember how to lock on in here. Oh no. Oh no. Come back. There it is. It squawked it. What happened? Time over. What? It plays pretty well, actually. I don't think I'd buy this for PS2. The T820 has proven that it can play some PS2 games, not the entire library. I kind of wanted just to see. I've never really played Ace Combat, so I thought, well, that might be a game that a little bit harder on it. I did try playing some Call of Duty on it at 2x resolution. That worked just fine. I played some Time Crisis at 2x earlier too. Let's see if we can get this back in here and see if it'll work. This is when I was testing out streaming or playing on the TV. So one thing I did find is that if you want it to change your aspect ratio for some reason, it worked with streamcasting it to the TV, but not when it was hooked up through the HDMI cable. So I'm not sure why that would be, but that does also create latency, so it's kind of a bummer that that's the way that you kind of have to consoleize it. That may be changed in the software update. Fingers crossed. They've been actually pretty decent at doing software updates over at Anbernic lately, so we really might see an update for that, but the way it stands out of the box, it does have a hard time actually getting the aspect ratio correct. All it does is mirrors it right now. At least everything I tried. All I could get it was to mirror my screens. But as soon as I streamcasted it to the TV, somewhere in there it fixed the problem for me. So I assume that I don't know what that's all about. Time Crisis works here at 2x resolution, no problem. We could probably go to 3x resolution. I really need to get a light gun and try one of those out. I've never actually done a light gun at home since the NES came out. You know, my only light gun I've ever had at home, which I don't even think is actually considered a light gun, is playing Duck Hunt. I used to love to arcade up some Time Crisis when I was a kid. I mean, what kid didn't, right? So I would say absolutely do not get this for playing Switch. But there are some of those rare gems out there. I'm using Sudachi. There are some of those rare gems out there that this T820 actually works very well with. But it's absolutely not good for this. There are some 2D games on here for the most part that'll work. I guess this is kind of a 2.5D game. But as far as your 3D games, they're going to run very slow if they run at all. Odds are pretty good they're just going to crash. There is one goofy thing about these CPUs, because pretty much only Snapdragon gets the upgrade for the Adreno drivers and things like that. You're not going to see Adreno driver updates on any kind of system like Switch. These emulators aren't being made anymore. For the most part, Sudachi's just starting to get picked up. It's going to take a couple years to get back to anywhere near where Yuzu was, if it even gets to that point. So there's no expectation of these ever getting those drivers that it would need in order to be able to play some of those heavier hitting games. I don't know that that's necessarily not the power. It's more of an issue of the hardware and the software not talking. Same problem you have with the Retro Pocket 4 Plus. It can play a couple of games, but it really can't play a very extensive Switch library because, again, it doesn't have access to those drivers. You can't put the turnip drivers on that you would be able to on something like the Odin or Odin Mini. But yeah, I just wanted to take a quick look at this and kind of show you what it was all about. I'm kind of excited about it. There's more and more things that I'm finding on here all the time that are working or not working or whatever. I finally just put Emulation Emulation Station Desktop Edition onto a device. I've got it a while ago on Patreon. I finally just put it on something, so now I've got it on something. Honestly, I think on this particular device, I think Daijishu would be better, and I might be on Daijishu when I see you guys again for the next follow-up video to this one, but it is something to say that I got excited enough to try to put it on here. I initially was going to put on the Odin. I haven't got around to it yet. I thought, you know what, I'm going to give it a shot on this because I really do enjoy this handheld. Emulation Station front end's a little simpler to use. It programs some of the stuff for you, where in Daijishu, you actually have to go through and find things individually. So I thought, you know what, I'll do that. It'll kind of help me along this process. For that part of it, I do enjoy it. I prefer to kind of tweak things on my own in the long run, so that's probably the route I'll go. The one thing I didn't touch on at all, they have done some updates to Anbernic's own front end for game playing. It's doing okay. All you have to do is pretty much put your games on the memory card. It will find them for you. It will put them in here, and it'll use the emulators that Anbernic already had installed. We'll talk more about it on the next video, but I uninstalled everything that Anbernic had installed on here. I would recommend anybody else do the same. For one, a lot of them is pirated, where they're pay-for emulators that you're not paying for. So depending on your conscious level, you either feel cool because it's a bonus and you got something for free, or you feel like you should be paying the devs first. And if that's the case, that's how I felt about it. But I've already paid for all these too in the past. Over the years, I've bought these emulators. Also, I'm getting more up-to-date emulators because some of these ones that are on here are pretty old. Some of them don't even really exist anymore in the normal sense of what we would do. The other thing I might look at doing if I was you, and we'll touch on this in my follow-up, will be an EmuDroid type thing where it's similar like Emulation Deck, but for Android. I have made a video on it before. If you go down in my videos, you'll find there is a video out there for it on how to set it up. It will actually push all those emulators over for you. And then when you set up Emulation Station, it will actually pull all that information and pick kind of your best stuff and your settings and things like that. So on that aspect, it would be good. But here, so if you're going to use Anbernics, it has a hard time talking to a lot of the things other than what Anbernic pre-installed on here. So just a word to the wise. If you're going to do this, I would say anything PS1 and below, I would use RetroArch for. Anything above PS1, I would look at using probably individual emulators for that stuff. There are a few different ones on RetroArch that'll work all right for different systems, but my experience is you're going to get the best experience by going with standalone emulators for the higher stuff, which again, you're good here. Now, if you feel like you got stuck because you accidentally hit that button, because you can't reprogram this button, you end up in here and you can't get out because this now won't let me go. This is the home button now too, so everything goes back to here. You just have to go up here in the drop down and click the game mode and just go back to normal. And then once you do that, you'll be back on your home screen. That is all I got for you today. Just a quick look at this. I already kind of went through my pros and cons. Let me know what you think about it down in the thingamabob. I'd love to see in your comments. You guys know I like to respond to you guys too, so any thoughts, anything that's thought-provoking about this? I've got a few things that I haven't brought up in this video yet. I want to see how true they are before I throw them out to the world. I have a tendency to put my foot in my mouth sometimes. Let me know down in the thingamabob what you think. Are you going to pick one of these up? Did you already order one? If you are more interested in it, I will have a link down there as well, directly to Anbernic's website, so if you have any questions. They still currently have a sale on this as this is releasing. I'm not sure how much longer it'll last, but right now it's $10 off. But that's all I got for today. Don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe. Share this video with your friends because sharing helps grow the channel. There's a couple videos here at the end if you're lonely and bored or whatever, or you're just doing what I do, and sometimes I just go down a rabbit hole. A couple videos here that YouTube chose for you that you're supposed to like. So take a look at one of those. Maybe it'll be something that interests you, and then you'll help out with my watch times too. That'd be fantastic. I do appreciate you. I'm going to tell you thank you right now. Anyways, that's all I got for today. I'm out. Bye-bye.